Hmm. Hello and welcome back to Excel at Excel. My name is Bruce and thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be tackling sort of a heavy subject here, so I hope that you can stay with me, but I think you're going to find this pretty helpful and useful. Today we're going to be looking at multiple spreadsheets. So to start things off, I'm going to go ahead and hide this spreadsheet. You don't necessarily need to care about that too much right now. It's just I want to get it out of the way so that we don't concern ourselves with it too much. It will still pop up when we start doing some things, but just to get it visually out of the way, that's what I kind of want to do because I want to keep things hopefully as simple as possible here. I'm going to rename this sheet to employees. Now, if you're wondering how I did that, I just double-clicked it with the left mouse button, and I'm going to type employees. Now I'm going to create another tab, and I'm going to put wages. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy this formatting of this first line. I'm going to go to Home, Format Painter, jump to the other page, and then click this first row, like that. And I'm going to put Department, or DEPT, and I'm going to put Salary. Okay. So let's go back to our Employees tab for a minute. You have to forgive me. We're going to be jumping around quite a bit. We're going to add another column here that says Department and another one that says Wage. And what we're going to do is we're going to assign a different department to all of our employees. And let's actually fix Michael Parks' name so it's correct. And that didn't update here, so we'll just go ahead and update that there. And let's just add a few more people like Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, and who else should we add? Juliette Lewis. I might be spelling her name wrong, but that's okay. Oh, you know what? I'm not even doing this correctly. There we go. Quentin and Rodriguez, Robert and Lewis, Juliette, Clooney, George, and that'll be enough for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and remember before we can fill in series, flash fill rather, and there we go. And now again I can fill in series with these to get our IDs. Not that we need them for this example, but why not? So what we can do now is we can input a department that these folks work in. So for example, let's just say that Department 1 is for directors, and Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez are both directors. And let's say that Department 2 is for A-list actors, so we'd put people like Samuel Jackson and Michael Parks and Uma Thurman and George Clooney. And then 3 will be for lesser, like B-grade celebrity type actor types. No offense to any of these people. So then what we can do is we can come over here to our Wages tab and have our 3 departments, 1, 2, 3, and we can set a salary. And let's just say directors make $100,000 a year. Let's say that A-list celebrities make $75,000 a year. And let's say that the B-grade celebrities make $50,000 a year. Okay? So now what we can do is we can go back to our Employees tab, and we're going to start working with formulas. So what we're going to do is we're going to say equals. Now we need to do VLOOKUP. What that does is it's going to look for a value in the column that we tell it to and return a value based upon what we input for its search parameters. That sounds like a lot, but trust me, just follow along and it should be pretty easy to pick up. So VLOOKUP, we're going to use an open parentheses. Now we need to tell it what to look up. So in this case, we're going to look up this value because that's what we want to compare it to in our other chart. We're then going to use a comma, and now it needs to say where are we going to be looking for this data? So in this case, we're going to go over to the wages, and we're going to select everything we have here. And then we're going to put another comma in our formula. And we need to say which column index we're going to put. In other words, for this, we have to tell it which column do we want to report back from? In other words, after I find whatever it is I'm looking for, which column do you want me to put in? So in this case, I believe we want column 2 because 1, 2, although it might start with 0. We'll find out in a second. And then the range lookup is either you need to have a true exact match or it can be close enough. Usually I like to put true because it often reports back the most accurate information. And there we go. We have our wage for a B-grade celebrity at $75,000. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make these currency, like so. And I'm going to go ahead and make these currency as well, because I didn't do that here. And now, check this out. If I copy this, what's going to happen? We're going to get an error. And why is that? Well, as I told you before, when you copy a formula, it's going to increment everything in the formula. So if I do that again, if I pull this down like this, let's take a look. So we have the VLOOKUP looking at E2, which in this case is the number 2. And then it's going to go into wages and look for that 2. And then when it finds it, it's going to report back what? The second column, right? It's looking from wages A1 to B4, which is wages, A1 to B4, the entire wages section. And then it's going to tell me whatever is in column 2. And it didn't put true, but I think that's the default here. Whoops, if I can spell. Oops, I guess we need false. Sometimes if it doesn't work one way, put the other way, and there you go. So there we have it, right? So what happens then when we move down is it increments everything, which we don't want, because we do want to look up E3, but we don't want to change the range that we're looking in at all. So how do we fix that? Well, there's a little trick that you can do in order to tell a formula to not change this part, and that would be the $sign. So before we come in here and copy everything down, we're going to come to this part of the formula right before the column index and the row index, and we're going to put a $sign before both, because the $sign basically says don't change whatever comes after this in this formula. So don't change A, don't change 1, don't change B, don't change 4. Whoops, I didn't have to do that, but there we go. Now, there would be some times when you would want to, say, change one of these but not the other, if you want to keep the column the same but increment the row, or keep the row the same and increment the column. It kind of depends on what you're doing, and maybe we'll look at some other examples in the future. But for now, we want this to always remain the same because we're always looking at the same information in wages. So now if I hit enter, we get the same value, which is exactly what we want. But now, when I copy this down, oops, it's going to cut off some of the data here because it's a little too long. If you see that, by the way, if you copy something like that and you see these number signs, don't freak out. In all likelihood, it is fine. It's just that the column is not wide enough to display the numbers, so it just throws this back at you and says, I don't know what to do with these numbers. And you say, well, make it bigger, and then we can see it. But there you go. If I now sort this, oops, where am I going? Data, sort. And we do have headers, remember, and we're going to sort by the department and say OK. You can now more cleanly see that our directors in Department 1 make $100,000, our A-list celebrities make $75,000, and our B-list celebrities make $50,000. So it's working correctly. And what's really nice is that it takes all the formula data and everything with it, nice and easy peasy. And that's all there is to it. This is incredibly powerful, and you can actually take it a step further by selecting this, the entirety of the data on this wages tab, and right here in the name box, you can name this something, so that instead of having to use this range here, you can instead use that name in your formula. And I'll show you. If I take all this away and I do formula, use in formula, now I have this wages name. And we get the same information. Now, I believe if I copy this down, it should still work. See that? Then you don't have to bother with locking in those cells like you did before. So that might be a lot of information, and I realize that it could be a little crazy and confusing. We'll probably look at some other examples, but if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the comments, and I will do my best to address them for you. Definitely hit that like if you're liking these videos, subscribe if you don't mind, and if you're finding these useful, and I really appreciate any and all feedback. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time on Excel at Excel. Take care.